Welcome to Paper Defiance, a fortnightly podcast all about indie bookshops and their owners. My name's Alex, and I'm recording this on Wadawurrung land in Ballarat, Australia. It's exciting to have you join me. Today we're staying in regional Victoria, but heading for the coast. Queenscliff is a splendid little town on the Bellarine Peninsula, and I love it very much. Matt is the third owner of the Bookshop at Queenscliff, and I'm pretty sure I've bought books under each of the owners. Matt's passion for the shop itself and for buying from indie bookstores is infectious, and I hope you enjoy this interview as much as I did. As always, hang around after the interview for a vignette from someone talking about their favourite bookshop.
My name's Matt Davis. I am the co-owner of the Bookshop at Queenscliff in Queenscliff, Victoria. How's that? Is that enough?
Yeah, that's good. So how long have you been the owner of the bookshop?
It's coming up on 3 years. Jane and I bought it at, sort of end of October 2019, just before COVID, I guess. So, we've been the owners for almost 3 years. The shop itself's been in the town for about 8 years, I think, or maybe even 9 years. And we're the third owners. We're started by a lovely local lady, Mary Lou, who's still in the town. She started the bookshop, which is incredible, I think. And then she also started the Queenscliff Literary Festival at the same, well, not at exactly the same time, but shortly thereafter. I don't know how she did both. It's quite incredible, actually. What a woman. It's a great gift to the town, I think, both of those things, to the cultural life of the town. And then Matthew and Lisa Jose from Canberra bought it from Mary Lou, and they ran it for 3 years. And Matthew's his day job was in politics, and he sort of had enough. But then I think when Anthony Albanese got the nod for the Labor Party, he asked Matthew to come back and work in the office, and that seemed like too good an offer to refuse. And so now he's in the Prime Minister's office, I guess. So they sold quite quickly. Actually, he took that job and they wanted just great opportunity, so they moved back to Canberra. And it was right around the time when Jane and I were sort of wondering about what we were doing, I guess. So when it came up, well, it's kind of funny. We're in Europe. We're doing 6 months on, 6 months off, and we're on holidays. It sounds really bourgeois, doesn't it? But we were on holidays. We were working really hard, but then we took a holiday. And I saw the post on Facebook, of all things, that the bookshop was for sale. And I showed the computer to Jane. I said, check this out. And Jane said, oh, God, I hope someone good buys it. And I said, yeah, us. And she just thought that was hilarious. But, yeah, I didn't convince her, but I sort of asked her to think about it, like try it on. Like imagine that. We could own the bookshop and, we'd give Frankie, our daughter, a little bit more of a stable footing, I think, in the world, because at that point she was being dragged back and forth. And she was great. She's a trooper and she was a resilient kid, but she was getting to that age where she was really developing friendships, and I could just see she just needed some stability, and the bookshop would be able to do that. So, yeah, we bought it. We bought it online.
Presumably not sight unseen. You had actually kind of experienced the place before you bought it.
We'd been in it. Yeah. We were customers, so we'd been in the shop, but as customers, not as prospective owners. So all the prospective owner sort of stuff was done online. Yeah, it was like we sort of joked that we bought it on Gumtree, which we kind of did.
That sounds like such an Australian story, really, doesn't it? Yes, I bought a bookshop on Gumtree.
Yeah.
When you took it over, were there things that you wanted to do or to change in terms of the physical layout or the setting of the shop?
We did a little bit. Yeah, we did. We wanted to make it – we were really fond of the shop. It's in a great position. Matthew and Lisa had actually moved it from where Mary Lou started it. They'd moved it to just a fantastic position right on the front corner, the first corner in town. You can't miss it as you come in. Lots more air and light. Well, yeah, no, there is more air, but lots more light, lots more windows. So they did all the hard work. We also sort of say they did the hard slog, and then we just came in and just benefited from their work. But we did want to make it ours. Yeah, of course. Aesthetics that Jane and I share and that we have individually that we wanted to bring to the fore. Some basic stuff, like we changed the logo and we made it something that sort of represented us more, maybe in more the town as well. And, yeah, we did. We painted the walls and we put in some new shelves. We sort of changed one whole side of the shop. All the shelving was custom built that we got that done. Yeah, we had another custom built table brought in, a friend of ours. Louis Rogers is an amazing sculptor and furniture maker. He designed this beautiful big red table, and as soon as you walk into the shop, you see it. So we got Louis to make that for us. There's lots of, I would say, little aesthetic sort of things, physical aesthetic. The biggest thing I think for us is the makeup of the stock. That's really where, I guess that's where our passion lies. And so it became quite organic. It has moved in a really organic way in that as soon as we took over, we just brought in a few books that we love. And in some ways, like I ordered books that I thought no one will buy this book, but if I'm going to own a bookshop, this has to be on the shelf. And a funny thing happened is that all the stuff that we loved that we thought was too esoteric or weird or expensive or whatever, edgy or niche, they're the books that sold. So that was really surprising and exciting, because then it was from then on, really, as soon as we see anything that we love, we just get it for the shop. And that's our barometer now. And so the stock mix has really changed over the years. You know, you inherit a shop of stock and then you either sell that through or you can send some back. And so over the course of sort of, I think that first summer, sort of 6 months, well, not quite 6 months because then we had COVID, but say 4 months, we really like lent into what we love, and then it's grown from there. It's now it's just a really odd little shop at times. Like there's some really interesting stuff we import and books that we just love that we'll just step into and promote and hand sell, really.
Is that in both the fiction and the non-fiction, your quirky takes?
Yeah, there's a bunch of stuff that we love in all over the shop, even in kids' books. You know, you see a lot of kids' books, a lot of commercial stuff, a lot of just, I would say, quite average books for kids. But if you dig a little bit, there's some just absolutely beautiful kids' books that are so sophisticated, subtly sophisticated and beautiful and simple. So, yeah, we have favourites and we just go back to them over and over again. It's the joy of book selling, I'd say, is sort of introducing people to stuff they don't know and then them coming back and going, oh, my God, that book you recommended, I can't believe it. It was so great. Or
I think every time I've been in there the last few times, I've found a book that I either didn't know I was looking for or that I had been looking for and I found there. So it has been a very good experience.
Yeah, that's great. I love the surprise. That's my dream, actually. People, like that, like your experience. It will come in and see something and go, oh, my God, what's that? And then it's just what they needed, just this. Yeah, they didn't realise.
How did I not know there was a new Anna Clark book was my last experience a couple of months ago. And I was just like, this is mine now. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
To go back to what you said at the start, the logo for your shop is, I think it's extraordinary. Can you describe it and how did you come to it?
That's Jane, really. I mean, it took a long time. We looked at lots of different ideas. We wanted to do something nautical because we're right on the water. We wanted to do something maybe that's a bit old-fashioned. And then we love book plates, ex libris book plates and things like that. So we looked at a lot of stuff like that. And then Jane found that one that's adapted from a book plate, from an old book plate, an ex libris. I guess it was a stamp. Might have been a card, actually. But that design of the mermaid, it's a mermaid reading a book. So we just sort of adapted this old, antique kind of book plate of this mermaid. Yeah, and so Jane just worked with our designer, toing and froing and little adjustments and things like that. But from the concept, it's pretty close to the concept, like to the original, just a few little tweaks and things to make it ours, I guess. But we love our little mermaid. Seems to be fit. Yeah, she fits the shop. And we made a stamp, as you would know probably. We made a stamp. So we stamp our customers' books if they want a stamp in there. And she's playful. I like the bookshop, we have we like chunky, serious books, but there's always a sense of humour. We hope there's a lightness to it, cheekiness, and I don't think books or bookshops should be too serious. We're talking about ideas, and we love ideas and we love writing, but it's fun too. It's fun for us anyway. So I like the idea that the mermaid there's a lightness to her. There's a sort of cheekiness to her.
It's a relatively small space, your bookshop, but do you have a part of it that is a particular favourite for you, or a particular aspect that's a favourite part?
I like the chair. There's a chair in the back left corner that sits next to the fiction section, and you can see the whole shop from there. That's a pretty nice. I find myself there at the end of the day sometimes, just sort of closed up, and I'm putting books away, and I might sit there and just read something for a second. I love the classics corner, and we've got little books down there, and sort of I love seeing young people come in. Young people just make a beeline for that corner. It's just it happens all the time. They just walk straight there. They know what's there, and you see them with the spinner, and they're just looking at, and they're pulling out Austen, and they're pulling out Hemingway, and they're pulling out Green, and they're just like, they're hungry for information. So I love that part of the shop, and I love seeing people in it. Yeah. But I love the kids part too. The kids section's so great. See little people like my daughter's age just pull up the stool and just sit in the sort of fiction, the kids fiction section, and just start pouring through it. It's great. You're right that it's a small shop, so there's not many areas really. It's just like one area.
You pack a lot into a small space.
Yeah, there's a lot of books in there. Yeah.
In the 3 years that you've been running it or so, have there been things that have particularly surprised you?
I think initially, I've lived in my own world quite a lot. I'll expand on that. But I'm a musician, and the music that I really like, no one really likes it that much. Except for me and maybe 20 other people. I feel like I've lived in a really niche world, right, where the things that I like, the movies I like, the music I like, etc., no one really likes it or cares for it, which is fine. You kind of get used to that. And I felt that I was with books and a bookshop, I kind of felt that it would be like that I will like it and Jane will like it, but no one else will really care that much. And I was shocked in that first few months how much people love bookshops. Like, honestly, I know that sounds kind of silly or something or trite, but I was shocked. I was really pleasantly surprised. It was like, finally I'm doing something where other people actually like it as well. I'm not just on my own. I was really surprised. People are passionate about book people, not everyone. Let's be serious. It's still a minority, but I was just so pleasantly surprised at how much people love bookshops and loved that bookshop even, before we took it over. It was just, a lot of people in the early days were just so grateful that someone bought it, actually, that it kept going. They were really worried it was going to close down. And so, I was surprised by that. And then coming back to what I said before, I've been surprised at how much people wanted to step into the edgier stuff, I guess. Well, it's not edgy. I don't mean to say edgy, but just like the more unknown books and the sort of maybe kind of stranger books or just the unheard of authors. how willing to try they were and are. That's been really heartwarming. I think they're the two things. It has been just such a pleasant surprise.
Your first point about your surprise in terms of people actually loving bookshops, you said earlier as well about how important it was that the bookshop was just started in the first place 10 or so years ago. Queenscliff as a town is relatively small, gets enormous over summer with a lot of tourists, obviously. Why do you think bookshops are important? Like, why is it important for a place like Queenscliff for that bookshop to be there and to continue?
I mean, I think it's kind of simple, really. I think what we're talking about are ideas, and we're talking about art, creativity, and a bookshop just automatically becomes a house for those things, or representative of those things in a town, in a place. So at its best, I think a bookshop can be like a cultural centre where people can come and they can engage with art, and they can engage with fiction and poetry and illustration and ideas. They can do it on their own terms. They can come in and they can engage with these books. They can also be in a space with other people that are interested in the same thing. When you walk into a bookshop, you're surrounded by people that are like you, just straight away, which I don't know about you, but I don't know that we get a lot of that in our life. You go to school, there's all these kids at school. If you're lucky, you find a few of your own people. If you're really lucky, someone in your family is your people, but not always. And then you go through life and, if you're lucky, you will find your people, but it's rare that you're all together. But you walk into a bookshop, if you're a book person, you're surrounded by your people. And some of them might have some pretty different ideas about what books can be or what's great, but ostensibly you're really similar. So I think a bookshop in a town can create this sort of cultural centre where people can come together, and just by being in the space together there's a sense of communion, I think. So yeah, and it does of course it flows out. Like it creates, it's aspirational. It's like that thing of if you can't see it, you can't be it. But you see kids come in the shop and they're like, here's a book that this young lady wrote and she's just signed it for you. And maybe I could do that. And of course you could, and we'll put it in the shop. And it creates this avenue. It creates this it expands out, and it expands out into other art forms. You have artists coming in to engage with the books, musicians, poets, of course, but visual artists and, other creative people engaging with books as the centre. And I think they're at their best. They can save places. They can really make a town or make an area. They're cultural institutions, and I think, I'm biased, of course, because I own a bookshop, but I do think that people, everyday people, how can I say this without sounding desperate? By choosing to buy your books from a bookshop, like an independent bookshop, you're investing in Australian culture. You choose to buy from Booktopia or Book Depository, Amazon, then you're not. I really noticed this in the start of the pandemic when we locked down really quickly. We actually shut before we had to because we have an elderly population. We were really worried about them. I know from just the way customers reacted, that the customers in our town were sort of deciding, at the end of this, do we want this bookshop in our town? And if the answer is yes, then we better buy some books. And we were just overwhelmed by the support. And that's the thing. If you want culture in your life, then you have to buy your books from bookshops and go in there and engage with them. The flow on is it's incredible what it does for writers, what it does for families like ours. It really makes a huge difference.
You still sound very enthused almost evangelistic for the bookshop. Has that developed over the last 3 years? Were you at this same level of commitment when you bought the bookshop, do you think?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's different. It's slightly different because at the start you just want to make it work, and we were very green. I'd worked in bookshops before, so I knew kind of what I was getting myself into, but I didn't quite. So I had a little bit of experience, but not. Yeah, I learned a lot in those first few months. So at the start, it was just a lot of energy of just like desperation to learn the business and figure out how to do it. And then you've got the pandemic, and so the energy shifted to how do we keep the lights on and not go under. So there was a lot of energy there, a lot of motivation, back to the wall kind of stuff. And then, as things have opened up and we're now sort of, I guess, in some other stage of this pandemic, I love books more than ever, I guess. And, I'm encouraged. I guess we're through that part where I'm not worried about the bookshop going under, and we know enough about how to run it. So now it's kind of, the question now is, well, what do we want this to be? Or what do we think this place is? And so now it's sort of, it's like the act 3, and it's like, oh, okay, now there's fun. This is the fun part. Now we can really play with it, and we can get more adventurous with our stock. And we want to do some new shelves, actually finish the sort of built-ins all the way around on the other side with the kids section. So there's physical stuff to do. We're getting a new table. We're getting into events are going to start again, which we haven't really had the opportunity to do because of the pandemic. But we've got our first sort of big event at the end of the month. So, I'm excited about what it might be still. I think they're great things, books and bookshops, yeah.
Matt, I've got 2 final questions for you. The first is, what are you currently reading?
I'm reading Maggie O'Farrell's The Marriage Portrait. She wrote Hamnet, historical fiction. I haven't read her before, but it's the kind of, it seems like, well, the Hamnet was a really big book in the shop. A lot of customers really liked it. And I thought this one will probably be similar. It's just come out, actually. So I'm sort of racing to try and, not racing, but I'm trying to read it quite quickly so I can get up to speed because it's on the shelf. And I'm usually reading 3 or 4 books at once, but this is the first time in a while I'm like, nah, I'm just going to read this. And I'm enjoying it, actually. I'm enjoying being chained to one book.
It's quite a commitment to only have one on the go.
What about you?
I'm reading a very old collection of feminist science fiction stories by an author called Pamela Zolene, who only wrote about 5 or 6 short stories in her life.
Wow.
One of which is collected in like every single feminist science fiction anthology. It's called The Heat Death of the Universe.
Okay.
And I didn't know she wrote any other stories. And then I found this collection and I was like, wow.
That's great.
I love The Heat Death of the Universe, so I should read everything else she's written, which is unfortunately not hard.
Yeah. It's been hard. One thing about the shop, and this is one of the reasons I'm reading this book now, is I've found myself over the last few years reading stuff that I'm really interested in, but that just comes back to what I was saying before. Almost no one else cares about. So I'm just trying to read things that are just have a bit more of I'd say a broader appeal.
Populous.
Rather than being such a niche, just a total niche idiot. I'm just trying to spread my wings a bit. So it's nice to be reading this.
I'm a science fiction reader, so I understand the niche.
Have you read The Wall?
No.
I read that last year. I've never read science fiction. I never had any interest, but last year I picked up The Wall, John Lancaster.
Oh, okay.
I think that's right. It's published by Faber. And I thought, oh, that's interesting, science fiction published by Faber. And so I just started reading it in the shop and I could not put it down.
Cool.
Fantastic. It's kind of a thriller. It's slightly dystopian. It's like set just in the future where all the rich countries are sort of have walled themselves off from the others.
Yeah.
And this takes place in Britain. So Britain's got a wall around it, and every citizen has to do 2 years on the wall, conscription.
Yeah.
And it's narrated by a guy starting his 2 years to protect the country from the others who are trying to get over the wall and into the country. It's fantastic, gripping. You'd love it if you like science fiction.
I'll look into it. Awesome. Thank you. My final question for you is basically, what would you like people to know? What would you like listeners to know about the bookshop at Queenscliff?
Well, I think what do I want them to know? I think it's a really cute, small, cozy bookshop with a deceivingly broad and interesting range. And hopefully it's a really nice place to come in. Like the energy in the room, in the shop is really big for us, that it's really just a gentle, beautiful, welcoming, warm place. So we spend a lot of time thinking about that, not drilling it into staff, but kind of. That it's just got to be just such a chilled and gentle place to be. So, yeah, it's a really loved little shop with hopefully books that you just won't see anywhere else.
Hi, I'm Catherine, and my favourite bookshop is the Bookshop Darwin. It was once an Angus and Robertson, but survived that. They have a chalkboard sign outside with a new pun or thought on it daily, and they always have very good April Fool's posts, such as, they'll now be open for 15 minutes at midnight for readers who need the next book in the series right now. If you shop there too often, they'll give you a discount, and they recommend books with, I actually thought of you when this came in. That's mainly Ashley, who also greets me by name. They do book launches, they win book-themed trivia nights, and overall they're just my favourite bookshop.
Thanks for listening to this 7th episode. If you enjoyed it, consider leaving a rating or a review, or just tell someone else about it. You can find Paper Defiance on Twitter as Paper Defiance Pod, on Instagram as Paper Defiance, and on Facebook it's Paper Defiance Podcast. This podcast is created and produced by me, Alexandra Pearce. The music is called Loopster by Kevin MacLeod, and you can find the attribution at paperdefiance.com.